Hey everyone, I'm Anastasia, and you're with me here via Modern Hygienist, and we're launching our new hosting show. It's called Straight Talk, and I'm so excited for my first guest today because she's not only a colleague, but she's a very dear friend of mine, and she knows her stuff. So you're really going to love this stuff today. It's Teresa Duncan. She is president of Odyssey Management. She coaches managers and team leaders basically on the administrative side of dentistry. Now, Teresa was just awarded the top 25 women in dentistry of 2014, and she also is an advocate on team-focused CE. I gotta tell you, I love that. She's got over 20 years of management experience, and she's gonna share some of her best hiring tips for us today. So Teresa, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, Anastasia, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate this. You know what? We've got a lot of dental hygiene students, I'm sure, who are a part of our audience, or even hygienists right now who are probably thinking, I don't know, if I'd like to change jobs or change situations, maybe I'm moving out of the area. What are some tips to help us get hired?
Well, there's always that old adage that managers and doctors stick by. That is, we hire for attitude. And we enjoy the aptitude, but we hire for the attitude. And so if you come in with a smile on your face and know your stuff, then you've got it in the bag. But there's a couple of things that we look for. So your resume, of course, we still use resumes nowadays. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we're doing, live video resumes and that sort of thing. So we still need a nice paper resume. Are we getting there, though? We're getting there, I think.
I hope so. I mean, it would be a lot easier than adding on. And speaking of those, how long should one be?
I always hear not less, only one page. If it's more than one page, people lose interest. But, if you're a very experienced hygienist and you've been doing this a long time, I would have a hard time putting my stuff on one page. You've done a lot. I can't imagine yours fits on one page. I wouldn't say more than 2 pages, 2 pages max. It's not that big of a hardship for a manager to look at 2 pages, so 2 pages is okay.
How much time do they have, right?
But one thing that I do see, Anastasia, a lot is that there's a lot of spelling mistakes and errors on resumes, and you hear this even coming out of high school. And so, you kind of think it's going to sink in along the way. So if you think your resume looks great, that's fine, but let someone else take a look at it before you put the seal of approval on it. The more sets of eyes on it, it can't hurt.
That's a great point, because even though you think you spelled something right, sometimes, too, you haven't. I mean, taking an example like even texting, right? We all think we've spelled something correctly, and we send it, and you get something back, and they're like, what in the world are you talking about?
Yeah, and then you try to blame it on autocorrect, but, that never works. So
I've been guilty of that.
Well, and, another thing that I see them come, so let me speak to the new grads in your audience, so the ones that come out, and maybe you've never gone on a job interview before. The handshake is so important, the way you present yourself is so important, and your smile. So all of that rolls into that whole attitude that I was talking about, but please don't show up in flip-flops, and we've seen that. Please don't show up in ratty jeans. We've seen that. We don't want to see your cut-off shorts. We don't want to see tank tops. You're going to be representing our office.
Things that shouldn't pop out.
No, keep it all in. But you're representing our office, and so we want to know that you can go out in public and represent our office well, and that you can speak well to our patients. And so your appearance coming in for your interview is just as important as your everyday appearance, if not more so, because you're trying to nail that job.
That's a great point, and when you put it together, it might not, be so bad to even have somebody, either a personal stylist or somebody, if you're really going to take it to even a corporate level, select colors and stuff, because it really does make a difference for that first impression. Tell me about handshakes, though. I got to tell you, I mean, sometimes people's handshakes are just like, is there life there, It's
horrible. It's horrible sometimes, because you and I go to a lot of social events. And when you shake someone's hand and it's like a wimp noodle, you can't help it. You want to just take it and rub it on your leg, to get rid of whatever was on your hand. A nice, firm handshake is that's a good business tip, period. Male, female, whatever. We teach our team members to stand up, greet our patients, shake their hands when you first meet them, and we want that to be a powerful representation of our office. So if you meet me for the first time and your hand is literally like this when I'm shaking your hand, I'm not going to like that. And no one likes to shake a wet noodle.
No, nobody does like to shake a wet noodle. No, it's a great point. Now going back to the resume, so like what questions may students be prepared for, to answer, and what questions may they actually ask in hoping to land that job?
So what the new buzz is that managers and doctors are learning about, and when I say new, I guess it's not really new, but it's making its way around, and not everybody's heard about it, but behavioral based interviews. So when you go on an interview and you're asked the simple resume questions like explain this gap between 2003 and 2006, that's just picking apart the resume. That's the old style of interviewing. Tell me your skills, tell me your weaknesses. Are you detail oriented? Of course you're going to say yes. Who doesn't say yes to that question? Do you like people? Of course you're going to say yes. And so the new buzz is to ask questions that make the interviewee think and put themselves in situations. So a behavioral based question is something like, so Anastasia, I'm going to ask you to handle me as if I were a patient in the waiting room. You're running late, and I've been sitting there for 20 minutes, and you can tell that I'm angry. How would you handle me? And so what I'm looking for is not, well, I would go out and tell the patient sorry and tell them we'll be right with them. I actually want to hear how you are going to talk to me as a patient. That's a much different interview dynamic than just explain your resume.
That is a huge point, and you can work that at both angles, really.
Well, I have lots of other ones too. I mean, you could certainly ask them what happens if a patient complains about the treatment that they received. And then we teach the managers to sit back and be quiet and let you do most of the talking. So you should be prepared to answer questions and also ask questions. I am thrilled when an interviewee asks questions about the office and how our year was last year, what kind of insurance plans we take, and all sorts of just questions about the office that let me know, number one, she went to the website or he went to the website and checked us out, and number two, they really care about the environment they're going into, and they don't want to just land in any office. They care.
You know what? That's a great point, because when you're talking about, especially the website, they may want to even take it into like social media. Look at their fan page and say, okay, are any team members active? Would part of my responsibility be in posting?
Right.
Different things like that too. Those are great suggestions.
So lots of ways you can go instead of just coming in and expecting to answer questions. Come in and expect to ask your own questions and be prepared to answer questions you probably haven't heard before, because that's the new buzz, is behavioral based. And so your listeners could just even Google that and get tons of questions. If they're on either side, they could get tons of questions to use either way. If they email me, I'm happy to send them my interview questions. I have 2 pages of interview questions that they could certainly use and even prep for. If they're hygienists looking for a job, they could use those to prep for their interviews.
Well, that too would help somebody who maybe they step back from the profession for whatever reason and they're trying to get back into the profession. So that might help also, is to see what type of interview questions they may ask. Right. So speaking of questions, I was the kid that always asked why. It'd be like, why? Why? Are there ever too many questions that you can ask during an interview?
Yeah, there's, I don't mind the questions. What I don't like too much is when there's attitude behind the questions. And what I mean is, so somebody will ask me, well, how do you handle, cancellations and missed appointments? And I'll explain the policy, and then the first thing that I hear is, well, at my old office we did this. Well, at my old office we did this. Well, that's nice. but let's talk about how you would handle it in my office and how you personally would handle it, say, if you had your own office. So asking too many questions, probably not. If you're talking too much about random things, maybe that would get on my nerves a little bit, but asking too many questions, I probably wouldn't dock you any points for it.
I love the questions for behavioral, and the reason, when you bring that up, because obviously the first thing is how you look, and the second thing is the handshake and your attitude, but looking at the behavior, you're reflecting your attitude into what you would do, so that's really helpful, I think, for both sides, actually, and you made a great point, is the fact it's about that office. They really don't care about where you're coming from or the experiences you had, because that's not this particular office. No. Very, very poignant and relevant for people coming out and looking for jobs. So sweet. Are there any final thoughts to get us hired and not fired?
Yeah, let me just bring up one point. I was really impressed. I hired one hygienist. Oh gosh, it's been years ago, because we all know what code for being in management over 20 years has been. That's code for being in the industry for an awful long time. So it's been a long time. I interviewed her, and I was impressed because she came in with testimonials from patients. She was relocating, and she actually came in from letters from her patients that liked her so much that they, it wasn't a long letter. It was just something like, we really liked her. We've been with her for so many years. She came in with 3 of those, and we were just really impressed that, number one, business-wise, she was smart enough to get references from patients, not just employers. And number 2, she was very proud of them. She had them laminated. She had them. They were like gold to her. She was exactly what we were looking for. She valued the connection with the patient. And so that was really, that said a lot about her, and she's worked out, really well in that office. And I'd like to give you a word of caution for your listeners. It's about working interviews. And so, Anastasia, you and I have had these talks personally about working interviews and how they can go wrong, and how there are dentists out there that will use a working interview basically for free day labor from the hygienist. And so from the office manager and dentist point of view, from this side of the desk, anybody who hires you or brings you in for a day of free labor to evaluate you, don't fall for it. Any good hiring manager and good hiring dentist knows they should expect to compensate you for your time, or they should expect to just have you come in and do a meet and greet with the team. But to work a whole day under the guise of working interview, we all know that's not quite legal, and it's a little shady. And so I just want you all to know that if you run into that, you have every right to say, I'm not sure this is what I want to do, and you'd be okay with it.
That's a great point, because sometimes too you feel, that it could be, oh, well, let's just work this out, and you don't realize that, you feel it's all part of the interview instead of getting paid for your expertise. So
right. Well, and so my simple suggestion to that is, if they feel uncomfortable, they feel like they may be getting taken advantage of, just ahead of the game, just say, I'm not comfortable with that because I've been burned before, and I'd rather not do that. Is there another arrangement that we can come to? You don't have to be confrontational about it. Just ask them if there's another arrangement that they can come to.
Right, and it boils down with communication, because you definitely don't want to display an attitude and going, no way, I'm not going to do that, to just carry on like you said, and just say, what, that's not an option for me. I'd like to work out this way if we can do that.
Right. So,
but man, that's such great insight.
Oh, thank you.
How can we get a hold of you? How can any RDH who's either getting out or getting back into the hiring process, where can I send them to you?
Well, my website is odysseymgmt.com. It's Odyssey Management, and you can email me at teresa@odysseymgmt.com. I'm happy to send you those interview questions. And to all the new grads and all the hygienists out there looking for jobs, good luck. Hang in there. This is a great industry.
It really is. Those were very insightful tips, and I want to thank you again for launching off Straight Talk, and we look forward to just sharing some insights in future episodes. Thanks again for your time today, Teresa.